Hello and welcome back to our series on how to use Nmap, its in and outs, and some practical examples. Now, today will be a little bit different from the usual fare of death by PowerPoint. We are actually going to be using some virtual machines today to show off exactly how Nmap is used, how to form some commands, and the very basics before we get into some of the more advanced techniques. Now, for my examples, I will be using a Kali Linux machine, just the default one you can get off of their website, which I will be linking in the description, and a Metasploitable VM, which is a purposefully vulnerable operating system that I'm running on VirtualBox, which is going to be useful later, but for right now, it's just a separate machine that I am using to scan safely without fear of getting in trouble. Now, let's just open up Kali Linux real quick. Oh, and by the way, you can also use Nmap on Windows, except I'm not a totally big fan of using it on my physical machine. I prefer to use it on a Kali Linux machine just for that extra bit of security. I also think it works a little bit better on Unix, but there's nothing wrong with the Windows version either. I'm just not a big fan of using the Windows command prompt. So let's just open up the terminal on Kali Linux. And the first thing you want to do when learning any tool is just to type in the actual command and see if any options come up. Now, if you type in Nmap, a bunch of options will come up for output, firewall, IDS evasion, just everything that you would want to use for it. Now, we're going to go over these one section at a time, but for now, we're just going to focus on using Nmap and its very basic form. Now, right here it says the usage is Nmap, and then the scan types, which is the dash, something like PN or like SU. So that's the scan types, and then the options are like verbose, what ports you want to scan, the port ranges, the timing templates. We'll get into all the options in just a few videos here, and then your targets. Now, it's important to note that it goes Nmap, scan types, the options for those scans, and then the targets themselves. Now, you can look through this help page for Nmap, but I don't feel like it's the most useful it can be. But here are a couple examples down here. Now, let's just go ahead and clear our screen to get some... Oh, using the Windows version there. So let's just go over how exactly you would specify a target. Let's not go into anything too crazy right now. Let's just go 192.168. I think this is actually on a separate host-only network for my capture the flag exercises. Yep, it is 192.168.117.4 is this machine. And I believe the Metasploitable VM will be 0.5. So let's just figure that out. Let's just go 192.168.117.5 because I ran it second. Host these down. Okay. Let's just scan the entire subnetwork. So what I'm doing here is I'm scanning an entire range of hosts using CIDR notation. Now that goes through and it says everything in 192.168.117 from 0 to 255 is going to get scanned. So everything in the possible range, starting with these 9 numbers, is going to get scanned. Since I know that this machine, the Metasploitable machine, is on this network right now, I'm bound to find it. Now, it's simple to note that you don't actually have to be logged in. Now, with all these open ports, I can easily tell that this is the Metasploitable VM. So these are all the services and all the ports that are open on the Metasploitable VM. Now, as I said, it's a purposefully vulnerable VM. We'll be actually scanning these in more detail later. But it's important to note that you can use the CIDR notation to scan a whole range of hosts. You can also do something a little bit more sane to some people, but I'm not such a big fan of it. You can actually go 0 and then you put a dash 8, so that'll scan 0 through 8, and that won't take as long as the entire CIDR notation, because that's 255. This one's 9 hosts. Now you can specify a range of targets in those two ways, or you can create an input file. I'm actually just going to stop that scan right there. You can actually use an input file if you so choose. Now the way to do that, I don't do it very often, but you can do -il and then the input file name. So you can actually choose specific targets that you have generated, say using a Python script. Now you can also choose random targets, and that's a little dangerous. So you can do something like nmap -ir and then the number of targets. So if you want to do 20, you just type in 20. If you wanted to keep going and give you information, you just do 0. Now that's a little dangerous because you can scan random hosts. Like right here, what it's doing is it's doing a like an example is nmap, choose 10,000 random hosts, do a ping sweep, which we'll get into in our host discovery video, and check only port 80 if it's open. Now, I actually have a quick quiz that we can do for the remainder of this video, and let's just go right into it. Now, how do you properly form an nmap command? Is it A? Is it nmap, then options, then scan type, then the targets last? Is it scan type, then targets, then options? Or is it scan type, then the options, and then the targets? The correct option is option C. Now you want to specify the scan type and then the options, so that Nmap will then use those options for that scan type. It's just a more proper way to use Nmap commands. Our next question is, how can you specify an entire range of targets in Nmap? Now, you can use CIDR notation in 192.168.0.0/24 to scan from 0 to 255? Should you use 0 to 255 to be more explicit? Or can you input a file with targets? Or D, all of the above? Now, if you've been paying attention, it's D, all of the above. Every single one of these options can be used for inputting an entire range of targets in Nmap. Now that's going to be important when you want to scan a network rather than a specific host. Remember that you can use, at least in this version of Nmap, you can actually use Nmap's 192.168.0.0 to scan a single target, whatever their IP is, if you wanted to be more specific. Or you can use something like scanme.nmap.org. Now, that's not going to work on my host-only network, but on your machine, if it's connected to the internet, that will automatically resolve to an IP address. And for those of you who are more technical, it uses domain name service, I believe, DNS, to resolve to its IP. And if it does actually resolve to more than one IP, you can use /resolve all, I believe. That's how you type it out. It should be. Now, that'll actually use every IP address that DNS resolves to, just in case you wanted some more targets to scan. It can be useful for something like, penetration testing. But that's how you specify a single target, either the URL of the target or their IP address. Now, we will actually find someone's IP address in the host discovery section of this series. Now let's just get right into the last question of the quiz. True or false? You can type in a URL on Nmap and it will scan its domain name service IP address, which it resolves to. Now, we just went over this. That is actually true. Now, I hope you learned something today, and we'll get into something a little bit more advanced in the next video. Host discovery. Thank you for watching.